Hey everybody, welcome to the weekend edition of The Bullet. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining me on this Week in Review show is on my left, Charles Heller, Liberty Watch Radio, and one of the people that's instrumental in bringing you Gun Rights Policy Conference when we just actually came back from it at the very beginning of the month. On my right, Mike Piwowarski from the Rundown and Arms Room Radio. And Arms Room Radio will be live here in a little bit later today. So, gentlemen, thanks for coming along for the ride today. We do have a lot of stuff to get to. A lot of stuff happened this week. Let's go ahead and get started with, and as I get started, let me remind everybody, I keep forgetting to do this. If you're catching us live on any of the Polite Society podcast feeds, get your comment in on the live video, and we'll get it on the air. We'll discuss it. If you're catching us anywhere else, Hopslands or anywhere else that picks us up, go ahead and go to YouTube, tweet with the hashtag #TheBullet. We'll get those comments as well, and we'll discuss those on the air as well. That is from noon to 1 p.m. Central Time when we're live on Saturday. If you're watching us on a replay, well, go ahead and comment. It helps the algorithm, but if we're already off and I'm riding motorcycle, I can't get the comment up. So let's go ahead and get started, guys. First story, New Jersey, ANJRPC released an announcement. This was actually released yesterday, and their announcement says on October 13th, a press conference, legislative leaders in New Jersey State House announced plans to attack and destroy the right to carry in the wake of the U.S. Supreme Court's Bruen decision, upholding right to carry and making it impossible for states like New Jersey to continue blocking issuance of carry permits. Although text of the proposed legislation was not available when this alert was prepared, legislative leaders described its features, and it sounds strangely similar to, if not worse than, New York's anti-carry law passed this summer, which really was recently stopped in its tracks by an injunction issued by the usually anti-gun federal district court there. According to lawmakers, they plan to ban carry in common public places by labeling them as sensitive places, something that's already been forbidden by Bruen and was knocked back in the aforementioned district court in New York. Ban carry inside one's own car. Ban carry on commercial and private property unless the property owner posts notices allowing it. Massively increase fees for permits. Mandate special insurance, which, oh, by the way, they tried to outlaw 2 years ago. And mandate new unusual training requirement beyond the already difficult one that has existed for decades. Final this one, the quote from ANJRPC Director Scott Bach: "These attacks by New Jersey lawmakers are a big middle finger to the U.S. Supreme Court. These lawmakers have no respect for the Constitution or the rule of law. They focus on attacking citizens' rights while setting violent criminals free. We look forward to overturning these measures in court and forcing the state to pay our legal fees." Strong words from Scott Bach, and I have no doubt he plans on carrying through with them. Mike, you're not a New Jersey guy. You're a Florida guy, but you're from that area originally. I'm going to lean on you first. What are your opinions on this one?
Yeah, a New York guy, and for the record, I drove around New Jersey anytime I had to. Listen, in the face of the Bruen decision, again, we see what's gone on in New York. We see what Governor Hochul's done there. We've seen what the what the federal court up there has done in the last week, striking down 90% of the law that she just created. And New Jersey, they see that. It's not a big giant wall and a blackout between them and in New York. They know exactly what's going on, and they were defiantly, going to continue down that path. We talk about this every time we bring this up, Paul, that there needs to be consequences for when for when politicians pass laws that they know are unconstitutional. And I'm not talking about, oh, I was on the borderline and I did it for, for the public good. I'm talking about exactly what was spelled out in the Bruin decision is what they're writing down. And they're doing exactly what just got turned down, on their borders. And I hear the argument all the time. Well, the consequences are elections, and they won't get reelected. I'm sorry, that doesn't work for me, Paul. If I find out you're committing a crime, or Charles, you're committing a crime, and I came up to you and said, listen, in either 2, 4, or 6 years, I'm going to tell you not to do that anymore. But until then, you can keep doing it. It would have no deterrent value out of it whatsoever. We need to have something more when they knowingly violate the law. We do it with law enforcement, right? They have qualified immunity. As long as they don't violate the Constitution or violate the law, they're protected. It should be the same for these politicians.
Totally agree. Charles, what do you think, man?
Well, actually, qualified immunity is if they violate the law, but they were intending to do something else, they have a good faith exemption. But I think that being from New York is an original sin, and much in the way that the 1619 Project says that you can't be redeemed. Mike, I just don't think that can be overcome. All right.
I don't think I need to turn you back up. I turned you down too much, Charles. Let me.
Yeah. Okay. Well. So, I think what you have is an example of people who've gotten away with bigotry and the suppression of rights for 109 years since the Sullivan Act passed. I'm not sure, but approximately 105 to 109 years, and laws like the Sullivan Act. So as a result, the prohibitive carry law in New York and similar laws to it throughout the East Coast. And I think what you've got is people that are used to getting away with what they're doing, and so their mockery of rights is not going to end easily. It's going to be a painful death of their abuse. Okay, I'm not talking about people. I'm talking about the abuse that they're committing. I want to be very clear. And so, as a result, it's going to take having to drag them through the coal of the legal system multiple times before this finally gets beaten down. My prediction is it'll take a few years before it finally soaks into their statist mindset that they can't get away with it. But this is an eternal struggle, guys. This is absolutely something that's going to continue forever. The internal struggle between good and evil. And I don't think you can expect them to do any less. And I don't think you can expect us to have any different responses as we did in Bruin. One thing I'd say as far as inside the car is put a sign up inside the car authorizing yourself to have the gun. And if it works in a business, it works in your car. Hey, and then let them go ahead and try to prosecute you when you have the sign up. And then you just simply point to Bruin and say, "Oh no, I have the sign. It's authorized." Use their own logic.
But the problem with New Jersey is they'll ignore you. They'll say, "Yeah, well, that sign doesn't mean anything to us because we're going to interpret it the way we want to, and we're going to continue to prosecute you and oppress you." That's the problem with New Jersey. The same thing that you're seeing in New York now. They're going to do what they want, no matter what the statute, the law, the code says. They're going to interpret the way they want and take your firearms away from you. There's no care at all there for them. And Charles, I understand. Let's drag them through court. Let's do that, but it's not their money. What do they care? We just heard from New Jersey there, and they said, Adam said, we can't wait to get awarded to win and get awarded legal fees. Well, guess where those legal fees come from? It's his own money. They're taking that straight out of the top. Give it to him.
Well, I can tell you one thing, and I guess it'll never pass in New Jersey. But one thing we did in Arizona was we had in 2016 a bill that said that if a municipality or a political subdivision of the state didn't comply with state preemption, that they could have their state shared revenue removed. The problem is it is the state itself that's doing this. number one, and number two is that kind of a law is never going to pass in New Jersey. But I think the way to do it is to go. First of all, you can't wait for them to prosecute you. You've got Dick Heller proved you got to be the plaintiff, and so did Otis McDonald and all the other people that have those decisions that have won. Number one, you got to be the plaintiff, and number two is you've got to go after enjoining them for money damages that will be so painful that at least if you don't win the money damages, it will cause them to think, oh crap, this now they're attacking our revenue source. You've got to fight. Absent using force, the courts are our only option, and I am no advocate for using force against government. It doesn't work, and it's not what our country was designed to be. Now, our country got here, but it wasn't what it was designed to be, and we ought to use every legal method to cause them pain to get them to stop doing it. And they aren't ever going to stop trying. We got to know that in advance.
Well, I honestly think one way we could bring states like New York, New Jersey, California, and others into line is to so solidly elect pro-Second Amendment people to federal positions, House, Senate, and presidency, that we can get past things like South Dakota never had a seatbelt law until into the 80s when the federal government said, you need a seatbelt law and you need to bring the drinking age to 21 or we're removing your highway funding. South Dakota took them to court and lost. That's how we bring that's how we bring states into compliance as well. Is we can rule, the courts can rule all they want that you can't do this, and the states are going to try. This is, we just did attempt C, now let's go D, E, and F. We're going to end up with attempt D7B. They're going to keep trying this until we defund them.
Yeah, we got to put an economic ligature around the throat of government.
And that works for some. We see like Nevada still is driving 125 miles an hour because they told the feds, we don't need your road money. You see where we get our income from? People come and give us cash. In California, they're broke as a joke, but their governor continues to go back to the feds and say the same thing that Kathy Hochul has said after COVID. Oh, we're out of money. Can we have some of yours? And the feds are going, here you go. So they're gonna get it. Depending on the administration in, they're just going to get handed the money anyway. And it's our money, my money, your money, everybody's money out there. It's not a deterrent for those states that thumb their nose at you anyway.
I want to get I cannot put this comment on the screen, but I want to get to it. This one from Chris on Facebook. Wow, bad optics here. Even pro-gun advocates are now pushing to eliminate our absolute right to use force in defense against a tyrannical government. What the actual...
No.
And Chris, dude, open your ears and listen. You're catching us all wrong.
Yep. I'm not advocating for giving up the right to do it. I'm talking about the tactic of how to win. And the question for that caller, if you will, or the commenter is, do you want to win or do you want to be right? And that's the important thing. The question is, we didn't get New York State Pistol and Rifle versus Bruin by rattling our guns in our cases and saying what we're going to do to government. That's not how we won. That's not how we're going to continue to win. We're going to continue to win by taking their tailpipe, bending it around lawfully and morally so far that we insert it in their intake and let them choke on their own gas. That's how you win.
You're 100% right, Charles. And none of us are going to say, matter of fact, I believe all of us, I'm going to speak for myself right here, right now. I believe you have the right to own anything you can afford. If you can go pay cash for an M1A main battle tank, an F-22 Raptor, if you can go pay cash for an aircraft carrier, you have the absolute right to own that piece of equipment and do with it as you will. Now, if you harm somebody with that piece of equipment, that's another story. But, anyway, so none of us are going to say you don't have the right to have the equipment. we're just being realistic as what it's going to take to expand our rights.
Yeah, and how to enforce that expansion upon people who are bent and determined on checking our rights.
He did have a follow-up that I can post on the screen. Whoops. That's not the right button. That is the right button there. There we go. I don't want to win if it means voluntarily handing over my right. Courts are the government. Courts are a branch of the government, yes.
He's not following what Charles has been saying.
No, but that's okay. His original comment shows that he's not really hearing what we're saying. We're not talking about volunteering to give up our rights. We're talking about working to maintain our rights through a system that will eventually work. The problem is it doesn't work quickly. It was designed not to work quickly. It was designed to have a slow process so that tyranny couldn't happen in a hurry. And what's happened is tyranny has instead happened slowly, and we didn't lose our rights overnight, and we're not going to probably get them back overnight. It's a long, slow slog. If by that the person takes that I'm meaning that we have to give up our rights in the meantime, then he's absolutely not hearing what I'm saying.
Yeah. One more, and then I'm not putting any more from Chris on the screen. The right is in the use of it. There must come a time when we use those rights rather than simply holding them up as a talisman. Chris, you sound like an acquaintance I used to have in Sioux Falls, where I'm from, who was constantly spouting the quote, the tree of liberty must be, and Charles, you can help me with this. My brain is complete, but
must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and the blood of tyrants.
Yes.
There you go.
And this guy had never served in the military, had never been anywhere near conflict, and was calling for revolution. I finally, very, very vocally, very publicly, in the middle of a restaurant, told him how full of it he was and that I never wanted to see his face again. And guess what? I haven't. I do not want revolution here. I will do whatever I can to regain our rights without violence. So that's Chris. That's it.
Yeah, I would agree. You know, nobody here is. And it's funny. The people, like you say, the people who advocate for that kind of thing are people that are never near a conflict. And I didn't serve, so I maybe I don't have a place to comment. But I noticed that the people who are rattling the loudest are the people who also don't go to the range and practice. Don't go to, they don't exercise their own right to bear arms, except for the fact that they may have a closet full of them and may even brag about how well filled their closet is. But, could they even hit the broadside of a barn if the necessity arose? Who knows?
Yeah, I know people who have been in conflict. I know people that have been in places like Bagram, like several places in Afghanistan, and you know what? What they describe, I don't want here. Civil war means everybody you care about dies. That's what it means. Everything you've worked for all your life, that's gone. We can get it back. We can get our rights back without doing that. I don't want to do that. I don't want my grandchildren to die.
There's also another thing, and that's that civil war disrupts whatever ordered sense of liberty that there is, and usually ends up taking many years to restore. My example for you is the Civil War. It took until probably 20 years after the Civil War to completely restore order, and on top of that, it took almost 100 years after that for people to restore the system of rights, so that we ended discrimination, legal discrimination. So you got to look at the downstream consequences. And as Andrew Breitbart said, politics is downstream from culture.
Mike, you were military, and you've been very patiently quiet during all this. Anything you want to throw in, man?
Yeah, military, long time. I've been to war, so I don't know that I have any special qualifications, to go much further than you guys have already went. But um, I think everybody has their line in the sand. Whether they're saber rattlers or they just sit off on the side and smile while everybody else talks. I think everybody has their line in the sand, and when I hear other people start to talk about, not you, Charles, I want to be clear on that. I've heard other people in the industry to start to talk about those people that say they're going to do this, they're going to do that. Well, it's my line. I have my line. Nobody knows where my line is, and I keep my powder dry, and my aim will be true.
Yeah.
When crossing that line, not now. Not now.
Right. As the great line in The Patriot, aim small, miss small.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I want to move on to our next story if I could, because I got to bring my blood pressure down a little bit. But this story isn't going to do it. Next story I have up is Shannon Watts wrote an op-ed. It showed up on Sentinel and Enterprise midweek. I'm going to read a little bit of the op-ed, that I've got some facts I want to deliver. She wrote, with just weeks to go before one of the most consequential midterm elections in American history, their airwaves are flooded with images of candidates brandishing guns. Our social media feeds are filled with declarations that the Second Amendment is under siege, and many political rallies have been dominated by rhetoric that undermines our democracy. It's all extremist hot air. These candidates want us to believe our government and anyone working to mitigate the effect of America's gun violence epidemic are hell-bent on taking away your rights and liberties. But the reality is the gun laws that save lives, and an overwhelming majority of Americans in red, blue, and purple states want them. Baloney! I'm sorry, was that external? She continues, amid a gun violence crisis that kills 110 Americans each day and wounds 200 more, poll after poll shows Americans believe in gun safety reforms are in the best interests of their families and communities. Gun policy is the number 2 issue for all voters. Baloney! I'm sorry. According to a recent Pew Research poll, and 71% of Americans in August AP-NORC poll said gun laws should be stricter, including nearly half of Republicans. Complete baloney! Doggone it. An overwhelming majority of Democrats and a majority of people in gun-owning households. I looked up some numbers. According to her numbers and the U.S. Census Department, okay? I got 2 separate things I'm doing. Her numbers, which are way overbloated, and her numbers include gang shootings and suicides. With the U.S. Census data, last year, 2021, you had about a 1 in 10,000 chance of being fatally shot, and about a 1 in 3,333 chance of being wounded by a gunshot. By the way, you have about the same chance of fatally drowning every year. Then I went to gunfacts.info, and I got basic info for debates on gun control is the fact that most violent crime is committed by repeat offenders. Dealing with recidivism is a key to solving violence. A few facts there. 71% of gunshot victims had previous arrest records. 64% had been convicted of a crime. Victims had an average of 11 prior arrests. 63% of victims had criminal histories, and 73% of that group knew their assailant. So this is, if you put people in jail and keep them there if they're violent offenders, your gun violence problem will go away. And then Mike, you sent me when you read that, you sent me a poll yourself This one showed up on Truth About Guns, and the top 10 most important things to voters. The virus that was popular a couple years ago that shut the country down, that's 47%. The environment, 44%. Racial inequality, 42%. Unemployment, 38%. Unifying the country, 37%. International trade, 37%. Taxation. We're not to guns yet. Taxation, 34%. Economy, 33%. Immigration, 33%. Corruption, 31%. That's the top 10. We haven't got to guns yet.
Amazing, huh?
Isn't it?
I really I stopped paying attention to polls when they told me Hillary was going to win by 10 points on that November night. In this poll here, Paul, the one that I gave you, it's not one I take 100%. It's the example of, for every poll there is on the left, there's a poll on the right. For every prosecutor, there's a defense story. It's just for every yin, there's a yang out there, and that's what we have with the polls now. Unless you go out and do your own scientific poll and do your own research, I honestly have zero faith in them. Maybe an inclination of where I need to do some more research, but these polls are hogwash. That one though, it seems pretty accurate. Everybody's concerned about finances. Everybody's concerned about economy, and like you said, we saw some violent issues on there, but we did not see anything about guns themselves. So that's take it for what it's worth. That it just proves again that Shannon Watts will just make up whatever she wants to hear.
Yeah. You on weigh in, Charles?
Yeah, Ms. Watts asserts that somehow what the majority wants is more important than what the minority has or what the minority gets. And there was a time when we used to vote on people's civil rights. That time was called Jim Crow. And if you like Jim Crow, you'll love gun control. And so she talks about our democracy as if we lived in one. And the oft-quoted line from Robert Heinlein is, democracy is two wolves and a sheep voting on the lunch menu. And you don't get a vote on our rights. It's just that simple. It was wrong when we treated people of color that way, and it's wrong when we treat people with a gun that way. There's no difference.
That's absolutely. We do not live in a democracy. We live in a representative republic. So, yeah.
And I'll point out, if I may, there are some democratic components to it, certainly, but more at the state level than at the federal one. And so obviously it is a blended form of government, but federalism is basically Republican representation through elected bodies. It is not the vote of the people. It's the consent of the governed through their vote, not the will of the people.
Yeah.
You mentioned it earlier, Charles. The Jim Crow laws, folks, are a continuation of the Civil War, of what the reason we went to fight in the Civil War was. And I don't want to get into all that, but we mentioned the Restoration and how long that took. It wasn't the restoration of the country; it was the restoration of the South, folks. And Charles, I'm not preaching to you. I'm just trying to clarify everybody else, because it kind of ties the two stories in together. The North decided that they weren't going to put the politicians in the South in jail. That was the first open arms to bring our brothers back into the fold. But you still had that underlying animosity for having gone to war, and that lasted the 20 years Charles talked about. It also went on until the 60s, 100 years later, when Jim Crow laws were finally gone after, because it was trying to be easy on the South. We didn't want to piss our brothers and sisters off again and have another fight on our hands. And it wasn't until 100 years later that we finally addressed those issues, trying to keep peace in the family and a gentle, fragile relationship that we had just put back together.
I just did a real fast Google search, and I found we do not live, again, going back to, we have a hybrid system. We don't have a democracy. We have a representative republic. But and we have a democracy in a lot of our system, but it's been working, and it works so well that there is only one country on the face of the earth that has an older operating constitution than the United States, and that's San Marino, and their constitution was ratified October 8th, 1600. That is the only country that is older than the United States in operating under the same constitution. So, yeah, it tends to work.
And I'll say
Well,
maybe even more important than the Second Amendment, the thing that our founding fathers did was the Electoral College, because without the college, all that went away within 20 or 30 years. Because it, like Charles said, it's not majority rule. It's all people have a say.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. And after all, San Marino lives matter.
All right. Let me go see. And I have to go back and see. Let me. Mike, just one comment here I want to get up quick. Mike White missed it. Darn. Well, the good thing is, with both the Facebook and the YouTube versions, you can go back and watch from the beginning. You don't even have to wait. Just hit the rewind button. And so anyway, I want to go on to our next story, guys. This past October makes month number 38 in a row with over 1 million firearm sales, according to my brain is freezing again. According to Nick's checks, yeah. And it's how do I put this? Of those million, not every one of those million are people who are buying their third, 8th, 42nd gun. We continue to get new firearms owners in all the time. That's good news.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and I know there's no study for it. I'd love to do one. We did an informal one when working in the industry. I bet the number of people out there that own one gun, the percentage of people that own one gun when it comes to compared to all the other gun owners, is small. Because once you get that one gun, we know what happens. Either it goes in the closet, they get rid of it, they never want to see it again, or they're like, oh, well now that one's good for this, but I got to have this now. I got to have that. I think the people that are buying more firearms are the people that bought a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, and now they're hooked. Oh man, this is great. And the ones that don't want the guns, they've gone and got rid of them probably, or like I said, they're sitting in the back of the closet, and some kid will turn it into a laser buyback in 100 years.
Did you see that article in California where a woman and her husband who had just got the gun the day before, she had no training, she'd never fired one in her life, and she ended up shooting and killing a guy who was attacking her husband on their front porch.
Oh no, I didn't see that one. No.
Yeah, there was a gun owner, brand new gun owner. She had both of Asian descent, and is in California, and she had never operated a firearm before. She had it was a revolver, and her husband was struggling in the doorway, was in a serious fight with somebody who was drunk and attempting to make entry into their home, and she put all sticks into the center of mass, and when the sheriff's department arrived, they declared him DRT, dead right there. And even the preliminary investigations, they looked at the man's defensive wounds. They ran a history on the perp, and he had a history of doing exactly this. And this time he received the lead Oscar for his performance. So.
Yeah.
And
fortunate, very fortunate.
Yes, very much so.
I mean, not the dead guy, but
Well, it's
fortunate
fortunate he's not going to be able to victimize any more people.
And it's also fortunate he's not going to be a burden on the system any longer.
Very true. He's probably still going to vote in California, though.
What do you mean? What do you mean? Probably.
Yeah.
And
and
in Chicago, the same election.
Yeah, true.
The Democrat Party still occasionally calls for my father, who's been gone since '05, and I tell them, listen, don't worry, he's buried at Waldheim Cemetery and still a reliable Democrat vote.
All right.
Yep. So his address is the same. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Speaking of new gun owners, I hope we can sway at least 75% of them to be a 2A activist. I would settle to sway them for being a 2A voter myself.
I'd settle for 10% of them.
Yeah.
Because most people who own a gun, if we would get 10% of the gun owners in this country to activate, there wouldn't be new gun laws. There'd be repeal of old ones. I think the vast majority of people really don't reason from cause to effect about the gun that's in their closet or their lockbox or wherever it is they have it.
All right. Couple more comments. And we've got a story. You know, let me go to that story first. I want to get. We've got a story. This out of KSRO.com. If you want to get rid of some unwanted guns, the Santa Rosa Police Department is hosting a drive-through gun buyback event a week from tomorrow. This story posted yesterday. It's happening at Bridge Church on Fullerton Road, and you can get $200 for each functional handgun, rifle, or shotgun. Cops are offering $300 for each functional assault rifle or ghost gun. Police will buy back 3 guns per person, and all drop-offs will be anonymous. All guns must be unloaded, and no ammo will be accepted. My comment there is, if you live in the area, let's get those 3D printers cranking up, folks. It'll cost you $6-7 to print off enough to get 3 guns, made up. But anyway, and then I want to get this comment in because it relates to the story, and that is Pete over at Gun Websites. About gun buybacks, what do you guys think of these buybacks accepting 3D printed items and not paying out thousands of dollars for them? Is that a good thing or a double-edged sword? Well, in this one, they'll buy up to 3 for $300 a piece. There's $900, and you've got, I don't know, $20 at the very most in printing material. Plus, I mean, if you want to make it a functional firearm, you've got to have a barrel, you've got to have a trigger, you can print a trigger, but you've got to have a barrel, you've got to have a few other things. So as long as you're still making a profit, man, go for it. That's what I say.
Well, according to the feds, it doesn't need a barrel, right? All it has to do is have one piece or one part started on it past that 80% point, and now it's a firearm, right? But I know that these local municipalities, these cities, these whatever these civic organizations out there doing this, they play by different rules. Yeah, it was the story. I think that's what the comment's referring to. The story last week that somebody. I think he did about $20,000. He got $200 or $300 back per gun. He printed off just under 200 of them on a $150 printer, and I think he said, Paul, just like you said, he was somewhere $15, $20 into them a piece. He made something like 60% of all the money that they gave away that day. He made it, and it was about 20 grand. It's what my thoughts on it. You asked the question. My thoughts. Or the caller asked. Let's. I say break the bank. Listen, yeah. You teach them. Show them that they're throwing their money away. The unfortunate part of that is half of those are funded by, government. A lot of it comes from donations and other places, but half of it comes from government. Means it's coming out of your pocket anyway. So, and if we get down here a lot. One of the big supermarket chains and one of the big clothing store chains, they donate towards it, and they say, oh, it's all donated money and nobody's affected. Yeah. Listen, if you don't think that's calculated into the price of the product you're buying, then you're a fool.
Yeah, and we're getting a good conversation. Let me get this in here. Smeggy on the YouTube side says, I can see where they will use gun buyback numbers to prove ghost guns are a problem. Yeah, I could say they're seeing. Look, we're getting these back at buybacks. And then Pete over at Gun Website says they accept single parts as machine guns, and they accept bags of dozens of machine guns. Will they say our buybacks bring hundreds of machine guns off the streets after? I don't know. It's hard to tell. I could see them doing that, yeah, but
the gun buybacks usually don't take it unless it's a functioning, looking like a firearm. You can't go in with an auto sear and machine guns, get from them. Now, they can probably take you also, but yeah, most of these gun buybacks, at least all the ones I've seen, I don't know how it is out by you, Charles. Do they take parts and pieces and give full value under the federal standard, or does it have to be a working firearm?
Well, we don't have them here, generally speaking. The reason we don't have them here is because they're required by law to sell them to an FFL if they come in. They can't destroy them. So, as a result, all they would be doing is stimulating the marketplace by having a buyback and throwing it back onto the market. So rarely do we see any, and it's not a buyback, it's a buy up, because they never owned it, so they couldn't buy it back. Mm-hmm. But we rarely see them here. What happens in Arizona when somebody tries to virtue signal and hold one of them is you get a line of people lining up, and then you get people working the line and offering double the price of what the government offer is. And we had a state legislator here, Frank Antonori, pick up a really nice 380 that way. And the police, when they realized what was happening, that they were getting shot, they were creating a gun show, began to shag people off. But then they were just going out to the street and doing it and intercepting people before they even got to the buyback. And the buybacks were drying up because of people buying guns on the sidewalk out front. So at least in Tucson, that's what happened. So we rarely see these. And, why do we waste time worrying about what liars say? Let's just go, let's put our energy in something else that gets us our rights, closer to getting our rights back.
No, and if you can, I believe there was in New York, there was a case, and Pete and go from a comment that anyway, there was a $27,000 gun buyback case in New York that we referred to earlier. If we can take $27,000 off the budgets of a gun-grabbing police department, okay, I don't have a problem with that at all. I'd really rather they work on things that will actually do something, like keeping bad guys in jail for longer than it takes for the ink on the paperwork to put them there to dry. I'd really rather they focus on preventing crime by keeping criminals locked up. But if they want to buy 3D printed guns for a lot more than it costs to make them, they want to give the money to the people on our side, okay. It's anonymous. So that means they got to be giving out cash, right? So they can't track it if it's going to be truly anonymous.
Right. And listen, just for those people out there that are sitting on the other side of the fence thinking about how buybacks are great, listen, if they give out gift cards, they don't give out cash. Guess what they have logged? They know the gift card number, so they know who you are when you're using the gift card, where you're using the gift card. They're absolutely sitting across the street, or there's somebody with a camera. You don't think if you turn in a gun that killed Jimmy Hoffa that they're not going to come track you down? They know exactly who you are. For that way. And by the way, this is some recent studies going on when you have gun buybacks, right? Because they're anonymous, no questions asked. You could go back and look at the crime reports in that neighborhood from the time that's announced until the time they turn them in. Crime goes up. They're stealing guns. They're committing burglaries because they know it's anonymous. No questions asked. So I can go take this gun in and get my money back. I got paid to do a burglary that was sponsored by the police department.
My question is, if they took all the officers that were involved in the buy-up, I refuse to use their term, but if they took all the officers that were involved in the buy-up and put them on known felons and known bad actors just from the security cameras in the area around violence, and got warrants and did it lawfully and searched people who had committed violent crimes to see if they were felons in possession, and then arrested them, I wonder what if you judged one side of the coin being a gun buy-up and the other side being a felony enforcement team. I wonder which would yield better results as to lowering crime.
I love the idea. What we've got to do is we've got to get not just police on that. We've got to get prosecutors on the same page too. We've got to get judges on the same page too, because the police can arrest them, and you hear stories of frustrated police because the criminals make it home before the policeman ends his shift. You got to get prosecutors to prosecute, and keep them in jail while they're awaiting trial, and you've got to have judges that will sentence them to real sentences.
Yes. Well, and that means your legislators have to pass real laws and bring back the actual statutes and standards that put these people in jail and punish them. A lot of the judges, like you said, just like the cops, hands are tied. The bail reform tells me that guy swinging an axe at a McDonald's trying to chop people in half in New York City, but this says, well, because he didn't actually hit anybody, I got to let him go, no bail.
Yeah.
Mike, that's just plain racist.
That's true. That's true. Yep.
All right, we got one more story to talk about this week, and that is out of Watertown, New York. And it looks like there are. Let me just go ahead and read a little bit of this story off WWNYTV.com. Under New York's new gun regulations that took effect over the summer, firearms are effectively banned at private businesses unless they're clearly marked by a sign. At Big Apple Music in Watertown, it's hard to miss the sign that owner Bobby Ferris put up. There's a picture on the story on the. It's a huge. It's at least as big as the sign advertising the business. It's underneath that sign. So the sign we posted out there is to be compliant for the governor's new CCIA Improvement Act. We see that there are some that we put it there so that people who normally carry it into our store know that they still can without being arrested, said Ferris. Ferris said he's been opposed to regulations since their introduction, believing they are a law to punish law-abiding citizens. And just a little bit more I want to read out of this. To me, it's a silly law and will do no good. It's now what it's doing is people see a sign, they think anybody in that store is now carrying a weapon, and that's not the case. Ferris said he has a sign for now, but ultimately he aims for it to come down. What he's looking for is to get the law repealed so he doesn't have to have the sign up, I think is where they're going with that.
Right.
So, and they mentioned a couple other businesses in Watertown, New York, that have those signs up. So, even I guess where I'm going to go with that is even in the oppressed areas, there are going to be areas where people push back, and there are going to be people in like this business, the Big Apple Music, that say, look, your laws say what your laws say, but you can't make us ban everybody coming in here with a firearm. So, what do you think, Mike?
Not to bring it back again, on the federal system, we have the Electoral College that keeps, just like Charles said earlier, from majority rule. And unfortunately, inside the states, it is, by popular vote. And that's what you've got here. You've got, 9 million people that live in the city, a couple more million that live out on, Long Island and Westchester County, and they're making the rules for the other 90% of the land in the state because, they've decided that this is what they want, with no forethought at all for what it's going to mean for the people in Watertown, as they want to continue to carry their firearms in their lifestyle that they live, 300-400 miles away from a population center.
Charles, you want to add anything to that one, man?
Yeah, there's a First Amendment component to this that we're ignoring in the Second Amendment community. Forcing someone to post a sign in order to establish a condition is what we call compelled speech, and it's unconstitutional on its face. And I think if anybody would do a facial challenge to it, just you can't force somebody to post a sign about in terms of a law. You just simply cannot. And I think that it'll lose on that, on top of it losing on Second Amendment grounds. But we got to understand that all our rights are all of a piece. It's not one part of the Bill of Rights. It's all of it. And although we focus on right to keep and bear arms issues, we have to acknowledge that the entire Bill of Rights is worth protecting.
Yeah, there's nothing to stop them from putting up another sign below that sign that says, "We don't agree with this sign here, but you do what you want. You choose to carry one. You don't choose to carry one. That's the right we defend here."
Well, what my father taught me when he signed my report card in grade school, under duress and against my will, taught me a great lesson about how to post a sign. I've used it to great effect throughout my life, much to the chagrin of the people who received it.
There you go. I wonder if that might have gotten me out of a few speeding tickets. But anyway.
I have been to court 37 times in 44 years. I have won all but 2.
Okay.
And one of them was a parking ticket.
Okay. All right. Well, that's the stories we got. I think, guys, we're going to go ahead and we're going to start the process of shutting it down a little early. I'm going to start with you, Charles, if you would. Tell us a little bit about Liberty Watch Radio and anything you'd like to plug, man.
Okay. Well, first of all, Liberty Watch Radio is I'm in my 24th year of broadcasting on KVOI. It's libertywatchradio.com. You can look at the recent archive and get the last 6 months. It's free. And as far as the Citizens Defense League in Arizona, we are very actively bringing the FASTER program from Ohio to Arizona. We've taught our first class. We've got an angel donor. We can, if a person needs to have a scholarship to go through the program, it's available to them. And any person who's employed in a school in any capacity can take the FASTER class and have a qualification to carry. Now, it's up to their school district whether they allow that, but it doesn't take any changes in Arizona law for us to have armed civilian personnel in school.
Excellent.
And I love the FASTER program. We're scheduled to have representatives from the FASTER program in Ohio on Polite Society podcast Monday night. And I am I'm really excited about that. They're doing fantastic work. Oh, by the way, I don't think there's been a active killer in there, active shooter. I use active shooter. There hasn't been an active killer incident in a school that has armed staff that I'm aware of. Ohio does have one save with its FASTER program, but it wasn't related to violence. It was a contractor who caught his femoral artery with a one of those large, what do you call the big saw that has 7.5-inch blade in it?
Sawzall.
Saw, I mean. No, I'm talking about it's a round blade, and the contractor was using it. It bounced off what he was doing, hit him in the leg, and clipped his femoral artery. And a FASTER certified physical education coach got to him quickly and tourniqueted his leg and saved his life. So FASTER has one save that we know of.
Well, and that's a great point. Is FASTER is not just about shooting back. It's also a large part of it is the medical response, and
the equipment, the equipment for same.
Exactly. Mike, let's go to you. Arms Room Radio, the rundown. Anything else you want to promote, man? What's up?
Yeah, so you got Arms Room Radio today at 3 o'clock Eastern Time. Go to armsroomradio.com. You can either listen live there or figure out if we're on in one of your markets around the country. And then we do the the rundown, the video series during the week at 5 p.m. Eastern time. Just go to the rundown.us or look up the rundown there on the old Facebook page. But having fun with both, and we continue to fight the good fight.
And I think Pete over at Gun Websites has the right term. Chop saw is what I think that the term you were looking for, Charles, for the large.
No, a chop saw is on a table. This is it's not a circular saw. I think it may be a circular saw, but I think the circular saw is one of those little reciprocating ones. This is I can go out to my workshop and get one if you want to show it on camera. But
it's this one.
Yeah, it's a heavy one. It's got a handle on the top and a handle on the back with a trigger and a big round blade in the front. That type of saw, whatever you call them.
That's a circular saw. If from what my brain is thinking.
In the front, that sounds like a tile saw.
I could tell a 1911 from a 1911 A1, but I can't tell one saw from another.
All right.
Saw time.
All I can tell you is all saws matter.
There you go. Yep.
All right. Well, the one in my shed doesn't matter so much because it's been a long time since it's been used. And it may or may not be used again, but at any rate, I think we're going to go ahead and shut it down there, folks.
So he has a killing tongue and a quiet saw.
Well, the saw, yes. Since my health issues last year, I don't do a lot of that type of work anymore.
Yeah, I've given up climbing ladders with chainsaws myself.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to go ahead and shut this down, guys. Everybody watching, thank you for the comments. Thank you for watching. Please like and share the broadcast. And for those of you listening on podcast, thank you as well. And please remember to share it. We'll be back next week, Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Central Time, and again, Saturday at noon Central Time. Until then, everybody, we'll catch you next time.